In the Greatest Philosophers in History series, we explore the most fundamental ideas about life, morality, freedom, and human nature through the minds of history's greatest thinkers. In this episode, we turn to one of the most intense and psychologically profound figures ever to put pen to paper, Fyodor Dostoevsky. Although he is most widely known as a Russian novelist, Dostoevsky was also one of history's most penetrating philosophical minds. His works dive deep into the psychology of the human soul, examining guilt, suffering, faith, freedom, nihilism, and moral responsibility set against the turbulent social and political backdrop of 19th-century Russia. Dostoevsky is widely regarded as the greatest psychological novelist in world literature, and his influence extends far beyond literature, shaping psychology, philosophy, theology, and existential thought. Early life and trauma. Fyodor Dostoevsky was born in Moscow in 1821 into a deeply religious family. He was raised in a strict Orthodox Christian household and showed early signs of literary talent, writing extensively from childhood. He was educated at home until the age of 13 when he entered a private school. Tragedy struck early. When Dostoevsky was just 15 years old, his mother died of tuberculosis. His father, an alcoholic with a volatile temper, became increasingly withdrawn and cruel, especially toward the serfs he owned. While Dostoevsky was still in school, news arrived that his father had died under mysterious circumstances. It was rumored that his own serfs may have murdered him in revenge. The psychological impact of this event was immense. Around this time, Dostoevsky suffered his first epileptic seizure, marking the beginning of a lifelong struggle with epilepsy that would deeply shape his writing. From engineer to writer at the age of 23, after graduating from the Military Engineering Academy, Dostoevsky made a radical decision. He abandoned his secure career to devote himself entirely to literature. Financial hardship soon followed, worsened by an extravagant lifestyle and a growing gambling addiction. In 1846, he published his first novel, Poor Folk, an epistolary story about an impoverished clerk hopelessly in love with a woman he can never have. The novel was celebrated as Russia's first great social novel and earned praise from leading critics. However, his next work, The Double, was poorly received, and his subsequent writings failed to gain momentum. Dostoevsky entered a period of creative confusion, publishing experimental short stories while struggling with self-doubt and financial despair. Arrest, execution, and Siberian exile. In the late 1840s, Dostoevsky joined the Petrashevsky Circle, a group of intellectuals who discussed revolutionary ideas and criticized Russia's feudal system. The group was infiltrated by secret police, and Dostoevsky was arrested and imprisoned in solitary confinement. After 8 months, he was sentenced to death. He was led to a public square, tied before a firing squad, and prepared for execution. At the final moment, rifles raised and ready, a messenger arrived announcing a reprieve. The execution had been a staged psychological torture ordered by the Tsar. Instead, Dostoevsky was sentenced to 4 years in a Siberian labor camp, followed by 6 years of compulsory military service in exile. This experience marked a turning point. Prison became the crucible of his spiritual and philosophical awakening, the birth of existential thought. After returning to St. Petersburg nearly 10 years later, Dostoevsky was a transformed man. He published Notes from the House of the Dead, a memoir of prison life that revealed the brutal realities and hidden humanity of convicts. In 1864, he published Notes from the Underground, now considered one of the first existentialist works ever written. Its narrator, the underground man, is a bitter, isolated civil servant who deliberately sabotages his own happiness. Through him, Dostoevsky exposes a terrifying truth. Man is sometimes passionately in love with suffering. Dostoevsky challenges the Enlightenment belief that humans are purely rational beings and that society can be engineered to guarantee happiness. He argues that humans desire freedom more than happiness, even when that freedom leads to self-destruction. Suffering, he insists, is inseparable from the human condition, and any ideology that claims to eliminate it merely changes its form. Crime and punishment. This philosophical foundation leads to Dostoevsky's first great masterpiece, Crime and Punishment. The novel follows Raskolnikov, a destitute law student who believes himself to be a higher man, someone beyond conventional morality. Influenced by nihilism and utilitarian logic, he convinces himself that murdering a corrupt pawnbroker is justified if it leads to greater good. But after committing the crime, Raskolnikov collapses inward. He is consumed by guilt, paranoia, delirium, and self-loathing. Dostoevsky shows that the real punishment is psychological, not legal. The novel dismantles the idea that morality can be reduced to logic or social utility. Humanity, Dostoevsky argues, is far more complex and far more dangerous than social reformers imagine. The Idiot and the Idiot, Dostoevsky attempts something radical, to portray a genuinely good man in a corrupt world. Prince Mishkin, gentle, compassionate, and Christ-like, returns to Russian society after treatment for epilepsy. His sincerity and innocence are mistaken for stupidity. Society exploits, mocks, and ultimately destroys him. Through Mishkin, Dostoevsky asks, can pure goodness survive in the real world? The answer is haunting. Demons, The Devil's Demons is Dostoevsky's darkest political novel, an apocalyptic warning against nihilism, radical socialism, and ideological fanaticism. The story depicts how spiritual emptiness and unresolved existential crises can erupt into violence, manipulation, and chaos. Every ideology in the novel collapses under its own contradictions. The Brothers Karamazov, Dostoevsky's final and greatest work, The Brothers Karamazov, confronts the ultimate questions of God, morality, free will, and suffering. Through three brothers, Dmitry, passion, Ivan, reason, and Alyosha, faith, Dostoevsky explores competing visions of how to live. The novel's most famous chapter, The Grand Inquisitor, presents a devastating critique of rationalism and authoritarian control. It asks whether humanity truly wants freedom or prefers comfort, certainty, and obedience. Legacy: Dostoevsky died in 1881, but his warnings proved prophetic. Russia descended into atheism, revolution, and ideological extremism, leading to unimaginable suffering. His works remain disturbingly relevant today. Dostoevsky believed that freedom, the ability to choose between good and evil, is the essence of being human. He rejected the fantasy of human perfection and warned against societies that attempt to erase suffering by force. In the end, Dostoevsky teaches us that our flaws, doubts, and inner conflicts are not defects, but the very substance of our humanity.